Christmas Day, 1996. All seemed peaceful and quiet in Boulder, Colorado, until news got out that 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey's body was found in her home. As the investigation went on, the suspects remained within the family, or possible suspects could have been the kidnappers who wrote a $100,000 ransom note for JonBenét's safe return after the case was declared a kidnapping. The question remains, who killed JonBenét Ramsey? This is a case we will get into deep. We will come up with our theories as to who we believe murdered this little girl. This is Bethea's Byte. It's reloaded. And it begins right now. Right. What's good, everybody? Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw here. I'm sorry about the knockout, but things happen. I'm gonna try and get Arctic Fox True Crime here because I believe he has some breaking developments going on in a different case. And I want him to I'd rather him dive a little deeper into it before we get started with the case we're going to look back on. But the best information I can give you is the body of Keely Rodney has been found upside down in 14 feet of water. I honestly cannot say that I've been following this case like I want to, but you're hearing it first. Keely Rodney found upside down in 14 feet of water. I will have Arctic Fox True Crime update me whenever I can, whenever he can come in. In the meantime, welcome to the Bethea's Byte Reloaded. Again, sorry for the knockout. I just got this word, and just as I'm getting the information, my computer gets knocked out offline, and now I'm back. So let me go ahead and shout out 111 followers, subscribers on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to everybody that's watching live. Thank you to everybody that plans on watching the replay of this. The Bethea's Byte Reloaded is your home for news, opinions, debates, your voice, and justice served. We'll do all the house cleaning as it relates to Reloaded in a little bit. But first, I am going to set up a screen for what we're going to be talking about today, and that is the mystery. I use the word emphatically. The mystery of the killing of JonBenét Ramsey. JonBenét has been a mystery on a lot of people's minds since her death in 1996 on Christmas Day. And there seemed like every time we dive into this case, there's more questions than answers. So I'm gonna dive into this as best I can here. Yeah, and if any of my usual suspects would like to jump in, I've given you have this is your information link. If it's on YouTube, and I would love to have you in the conversation. All right, here we go. The killing of JonBenét Ramsey. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was an American child beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. A long handwritten ransom note was found in the home. Her father, John, found the girl's body in the basement of their house about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. She sustained a broken skull from a blow to the head and had been strangled. A garrote was found tied around her neck. Autopsy reports stated that JonBenét's official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with cranial cerebral trauma. Death ruled a homicide. The case generated worldwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen herself, had entered JonBenét into a series of child beauty pageants. The crime is still considered a cold case and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department. Boulder police initially suspected that the ransom note had been written by Patsy, and that the note and appearance of JonBenét's body had been staged by her parents in order to cover up the murder. In 1998, the police and district attorney said that JonBenét's brother Bert, who was 9 years old at the time, was not a suspect. JonBenét's parents gave several televised interviews, but resisted police questioning except on their own terms. In October of 2013, unsealed court documents revealed that a 1999 grand jury had recommended filing charges against the Ramseys for permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. John and Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime of murder in the first degree and child abuse resulting in death. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to pursue a successful indictment. In 2002, the DA's successor took over the investigation from the police and primarily pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA was taken from the victim's clothes, was found to belong to an unknown male. Each of the family's DNA has been excluded from this match, and the DA sent the Ramseys a letter of apology in 2008, declaring the family was completely cleared by the DNA results. Others included former police chief Mark Beckner, disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, characterizing the DNA as a small piece of evidence that was not proven to have any connection to the crime. In February 2009, the Boulder police took the case back from the DA and reopened the investigation. National and international media coverage of the case focused on JonBenét's brief beauty pageant career, as well as her parents' wealth and the unusual evidence found in the case. Media reports questioned how the police handled the investigation. Ramsey family members and their friends have filed defamation suits against several media organizations. Now, knowing what we know, they're saying that the case is reopened, but it's not any of the family. If not, then who? If not, then who? Something to think about, isn't it? I'm not going to go through all of the JonBenét's life story. I'll say this much: if JonBenét were alive today, she would be 32 years of age. Her mother passed away in 2006. Her father, John, who she's pretty much named after, he's still alive, as well as Burke. But now I'm ready to get into the evidence of the case. But we start with to nobody's surprise, the ransom note. According to statements that Patsy gave to authorities on December 26 of 1996, she realized that her daughter was missing after she found a 2.5-page written ransom note on the kitchen staircase at the Ramseys' Boulder residence. The note demanded $118,000, which is equivalent to $203,877 in 2021. John pointed out to police first on the scene that the amount was nearly identical to his Christmas bonus of the prior year, which suggested that someone who would have access to that information would be involved in the crime. Investigators looked at several theories behind the dollar amount demanded, considering employees at Access Graphics who may have known of the amount of John's prior bonus. They also considered the possibility that the ransom demand was a reference to Psalm 118 and spoke to religious sources to determine possible relevance. Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna pull that verse up. Ladies and gentlemen, Psalms 118, that is reference to what I like to call the mercy psalm. Because each second line states that his mercy endures forever. At least in the first 4 verses. And then it continues onward at the very end of verse 29. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. The ransom note appears to echo the film dialogue, the films Ransom, Speed, and Dirty Harry have acceptance as sources. The ransom note was unusually long. The FBI told police that it was very unusual for such a note to be written at the crime scene. Police believe that the note was staged because it did not have any fingerprints except for Patsy's and authorities who had handled it. And because it included an unusual use of exclamation points and initialisms, the note and a practice draft were written with a pen and notepad from the Ramsey home. According to a Colorado Bureau of Investigation report, there are indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey. However, the evidence fell short of a definitive conclusion. Michael Baden, a board-certified forensic pathologist who had consulted with both sides of the case, said he never saw a note like it in his 60-year experience, and that he did not think it was written by an outside stranger. A federal court ruled it highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note, citing 6 certified handwriting experts. The court bemoaned the existence of the self-proclaimed experts without credentials, trying to wrangle their way into the case by accusing Patsy without scientific basis. So we have a ransom note. We have a ransom note that's 2 pages long. The draft was written by pen on a notepad, and the first person they looked at was Patsy for it. Yet it's not conclusive. So playing devil's advocate, and this is for everybody watching, if Patsy didn't write the note, who did? Again, it's not just one of those things to think about. It's one of those things that make you go, And this is the note in full. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed. And if you want to see her in 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw. $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money, and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Do not underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory. SBTC. What are you thinking, huh? Or what are you asking? That is one theory. They're saying they said the possibility was there that Patsy Ramsey wrote the note. And then again, who knows? Some people say she wrote it, others saying she did it. Somebody saying it was an outsider who wrote the note. The only people known to be in the house on the night of JonBenét's death were her immediate family, Patsy and John Ramsey and their son Bert. The ransom note contains specific instructions against contacting police and friends, but Patsy telephoned police at 5:52 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. She also called family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the 911 call and arrived at the Ramsey home within 3 minutes. They conducted a cursory search of the house, but did not find any sign of forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement and came to a door that was secured by a wooden latch. He paused for a moment in front of the door, but walked away without opening it. French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnapper, which the closed inside peg ruled out. JonBenét's body was later found behind that door. With JonBenét still missing, John made arrangements to pay the ransom. A forensics team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed that the child had been kidnapped, and JonBenét's bedroom was the only room in the house that was cordoned off to prevent contamination of evidence. No precautions were taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the home. Meanwhile, friends, victim advocates, and the Ramsey family's minister arrived at the home to show support. Visitors picked up and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, possibly destroying evidence. Boulder detective Linda Arndt arrived at the house about 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time in anticipation of receiving further instructions by the kidnappers, but there was never an attempt by anyone to claim the money. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Detective Arndt asked John Ramsey and Fleet White, a family friend, to search the house to see if anything seemed amiss. They started their search in the basement. John opened the latch door, which Officer French had overlooked, and found his daughter's body in one of the rooms. JonBenét's mouth was covered with duct tape. A nylon cord was found around her wrists and neck, and her torso was covered by a white blanket. John picked up the child's body and took it upstairs. When JonBenet was moved, the crime scene was further contaminated, and critical forensic evidence was disturbed for the returning forensics team. Each of the Ramseys provided handwriting, blood, and hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours, and Burke was also interviewed within the first couple of weeks following JonBenet's death. Again, as I stated before regarding the autopsy, it was revealed that JonBenet had been killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. The official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. There is no evidence of conventional rape, although sexual assault could not be ruled out. Although no semen was found, there was evidence that there had been a vaginal injury. At the time of the autopsy, the pathologist recorded that it had appeared her vaginal area had been wiped with a cloth. Her death was ruled a homicide. Now, I know there's a lot more to get into. But I'm gonna take a pause for the cause right here and go to YouTube real quick. And go right to Arctic Fox True Crime, and he has the update on Keely Rodney. Give me one moment to pull that up, ladies and gentlemen.
It's Arctic Fox. I wanted to come on here real quick and give the heartbreaking update that Kylie Rodney has been found. Unfortunately, her car was upside down and only in 14 feet of water. Adventures with Purpose to the rescue again. They have confirmed that Kylie is inside. The family's been notified and law enforcement is on their way. I personally want to give my heartfelt thanks to Adventures with Purpose for taking the time to go and find Kylie. And I'm sure the family would like to express their thanks to them as well. I will try to get a larger video out as soon as I get back home to my computer. But for now, I want to be one of the first to break the news that Kylie has indeed been found. And I want to give my condolences to the family and to her friends. And hopefully we will find out what happened to Kylie, how she ended up in the water. But for now, we know that she's found. She can be laid to rest properly. And this can give the family at least some sense of closure. As always, guys, I do want to thank you so much for tuning in and watching. If you would be so kind as to give the video a like, it does help the channel out. Y'all have a good weekend. I know this isn't the news that you wanted to hear, and unfortunately, it's the news I have to break to you. Y'all take care, be kind to one another out there, and I'll see you in the next video.
Arctic Fox is right. That's not the kind of news he wanted to deliver, but that was the kind of news he had to. Special thanks to him for bringing us that information on finding Kylie Rodney. If this is an unfortunate accident, let's hope that let's hope and pray that the family gets some kind of closure. But if it's anything other than that, then let's hope and pray that the family gets justice for Kylie. All right, so there we go. But now let's get back to JonBenét, and let's continue onward with the blood samples found as the investigation wore on. In December 2003, forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBenét's underwear to establish a DNA profile. That DNA belonged to an unknown male person and excluded the DNA of each of the Ramseys. The DNA was submitted to the FBI's Combined DNA Index System, or CODIS, a database containing more than 1.6 million DNA profiles. But the sample did not match any profile in the database. In October 2016, a report said that new forensic analysis with more sensitive techniques revealed that the original DNA contained genetic markers from two individuals other than JonBenét. A. James Kolar, who was the lead investigator for the DA's office, said that there were additional traces of male DNA found on the cord and paintbrush that Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey did not mention, and that there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to individuals that were found by the test. Former FBI profiler Candace DeLorme believes that the DNA, having shown up identically in several different places on multiple surfaces, belongs to the killer. Former Adams County, Colorado District Attorney Bob Grant, who has assisted the Boulder DA's office on the case for many years, also believes that the DNA evidence is significant, saying that any resolution of the case would have to explain how the DNA showed up on several pieces of JonBenét's clothing. Forensic pathologist Michael Baden said trace amounts of DNA can get on places and clothing from all different non-suspicious means. There is no forensic evidence to show that this is a stranger murder. Which brings me back to the question of who? Now to the investigation. Experts, media commentators, and the Ramseys have identified potential suspects in the case. Boulder police initially focused exclusively on John and Patsy, but by October of 1997, had over 1,600 people in their index of persons of interest for the case. Errors that were made in the initial investigation complicated the resolution of the investigation and applicable theory, which we will get into a little bit because there are plenty of theories in this. Those errors included loss and contamination of evidence, lack of experienced and technical staff on the investigation, evidence shared with the Ramseys, and delayed informal interviews with the parents. Lou Smith was a detective who came out of retirement in early '97 to assist the Boulder County DA's office with the case. In May '98, he presented his findings to the Boulder police with other staff members of the DA's office, concluding that the evidence pointed away from the Ramseys. They were unable to successfully challenge the police department's belief that the Ramseys were guilty. The DA's office sought to take control of the investigation due to the animosity between police and the DA's office and the pressure to obtain a conviction. Colorado Governor Roy Romer interceded and named Michael Caine as a special prosecutor to initiate a grand jury. Two of the lead investigators in the case had opposing views. Both Lou Schmidt and Steve Thomas ultimately resigned. Schmidt, because he believed that the investigation had incompetently overlooked the intruder hypothesis, and Thomas, because the DA's office had interfered with and failed to support the police investigation of the case. A grand jury convened beginning September 15th of 98 to consider indicting the Ramseys for charges relating to the case. In 1999, the grand jury returned a true bill to charge the Ramseys with placing the child at risk in a way that led to her death and with obstructing an investigation of murder, based on the probable cause standard applied in such grand jury proceedings. The Boulder, Colorado DA Alex Hunter did not prosecute them because he did not believe that he could meet the higher standard of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt that is required for criminal conviction. Mary Lacey, the next Boulder, Colorado DA, took over the investigation from the police on December 26, 2002. In April of 2003, she agreed with the federal judge who sat on a 2002 libel case that evidence in the suit is, quote, more consistent with a theory that an intruder murdered JonBenét than it was with a theory that Mrs. Ramsey did. On July 9th of 2008, the Boulder DA's office announced that as a result of newly developed DNA sampling and testing techniques, touch DNA analysis, the Ramsey family members were excluded as suspects in the case. Lacey publicly exonerated the Ramseys. On February 2nd of 2009, Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner announced that Stan Garrett, the new Boulder County DA, was turning the case over to his agency, and that his team would resume investigating it. Garnett found that the statute of limitations for the crimes identified in a 1999 grand jury true bill had expired and did not pursue review of the case against the Ramseys. In October 2010, the Boulder police reopened the cold case. New interviews were conducted following a fresh inquiry by a committee that included the state and federal investigators. Police were expected to use the latest DNA technology in their investigation. There was no new information gleaned from those interviews. It was reported in September 2016 that the investigation into JonBenét's death continues to be an active homicide case per Police Chief Greg Testa. So, there we go. It's not over. It's not even close to over. In 2015, Beckner disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, stating, exonerating anyone based on a small piece of evidence that has not yet been proven to be connected to the crime is absurd. He also said that the unknown DNA from JonBenét's clothing has got to be the focus of the investigation. At this point in time, and that until one can prove otherwise, the suspect is the donator of that unknown DNA. In 2016, Gordon Klumes, a former investigator for the Boulder County District Attorney's Office, also questioned the absolution of the Ramseys, stating, we all shed DNA all the time within our skin cells. It can be deposited anywhere at any time for various reasons that are benign. To clear somebody just on the premise of touch DNA, especially when you have a situation where the crime scene wasn't secure at the beginning, really is a stretch. Stephen A. Pitt, a forensic psychiatrist, hired by Boulder authorities, said Lacey's public exoneration of the Ramseys was a big slap in the face to Chief Beckner and the core group of detectives who have been working on the case for years. There are two different theories regarding this case. Two different theories. There's the family theory, and then there's the intruder theory. So to everyone who is watching, I want you to pay close attention to both of these theories, and I want to see which one you subscribe to. Oh, hey, come on in, Fox. Fox, I'm getting. I want to hear this. I want to hear this from you before I read these theories out. Arctic Fox True Crime has a very, very solid may have a good working theory because believe it or not, that's what I originally had thought at one time too. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me at this time, Arctic Fox True Crime. What's up, my brother?
What's up? What's up? First off, I want to express my sincerest condolences to the family of Kylie Rodney. She unfortunately was found upside down in her vehicle in 14 feet of water. So
I found I share that sentiment too. I played the video. I played your video earlier, and like I said before regarding that case, if it was accidental, I hope and pray that the family gets some kind of closure on this. If it's anything regarding foul play, I pray that the family gets justice.
yeah, I'd really like to know what position in that vehicle she was found. If it was the driver's seat, the passenger seat, that would be pertinent information. But getting back to the Ramsey case, anyone that watched Dr. Phil's interview with Burke Ramsey, where he's sitting there grinning like a kid that got caught with his hand in the cookie jar the whole interview. Yeah, I'm sorry. I get vibes that Burke did it, and the note being written in Patsy's handwriting tells me that she was trying to cover up and protect Burke.
I was thinking that for quite a long time too, and I didn't even watch the Dr. Phil interview. Including the fact that I've read that a little while ago, I read the entire ransom note, which was supposed to be about 2 pages long. Now, who writes a ransom note that long?
Oh, and keep in mind that it had been rewritten like 2 or 3 times too, and it was written on paper and with a pen from the Ramsey's home, nonetheless. And it specified the specific amount that John was getting as a Christmas bonus that year. So come on now. Even Stevie Wonder can see the problems here.
That's one of my favorite lines here. But now let's get to how they look at this theory. First, the family member theory. Yeah, there are 2 types of theories about the death of JonBenét. One is the family member theory. Boulder police initially concentrated almost exclusively on the parents, John and Patsy Ramsey. According to Greg McQuarrie, a retired profiler with the FBI, quote, statistically, it is a 12-to-1 probability that it's a family member or caregiver, end quote, who is involved in the homicide of a child. The police saw no evidence of a forced entry, but they did see evidence of staging of the scene, such as the ransom note. They did not find the Ramseys cooperative in helping them solve the death of their daughter. The Ramseys had said that their reluctance was due to their fear that there would not be a full investigation for intruders, and that they would be hastily selected as key suspects in the case, and that's according to the Daily Camera. One running theory is that Patsy struck JonBenét in a fit of rage after a bedwetting episode and strangled her to cover up what had happened after mistakenly thinking she was already dead. However, Patsy did not have a known history of uncontrolled anger. JonBenét's mother later said, quote, we didn't get spanked, nothing of the sort, nothing close, nothing near laying a finger on us. let alone killing your child. Theoretically, the strangulation could have been a red herring aspect to conceal other elements of the assault and killing. Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of JonBenét's death, was interviewed by investigators at least 3 times. The first 2 interviews did not raise any concerns about him. A review by a child psychologist stated that it appeared that the Ramseys had healthy, caring family relationships. In 1998, the Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner said during an interview with a news reporter that Burke Ramsey was not involved in the killing of his sister. In May 1999, the Boulder County DA's office reiterated that Burke was not a suspect. The investigators never considered him a suspect. The Ramseys, now here's funny. The Ramseys offered a $100,000 reward in a newspaper ad dated April 27, 1997. 3 days later, more than 4 months after the body was found, they submitted for the first time to separate formal interviews at the Boulder County Justice Center. In 1999, Colorado Governor Bill Owens spoke out, telling the Ramsey couple to, quote, quit hiding behind their attorneys and quit hiding behind their PR firm. A Colorado grand jury voted in 1999 to indict the parents. The indictment cited 2 counts each of child abuse and said the parents did unlawfully, knowingly, recklessly, and feloniously permit a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation that posed a threat of injury to the child's life or health, which resulted in the death of JonBenét Ramsey, a child under the age of 16. Among the experts who testified in the case were DNA specialist Barry Scheck and forensic expert Henry Lee. On October 13, 1999, Alex Hunter, who was the district attorney at the time, refused to sign the indictment, saying that the evidence was insufficient for prosecution.
And I've got huge issues with that. I mean, how often have you ever seen a district attorney go against what a grand jury says? How often have they not pursued charges after a grand jury has come back with an indictment?
I'm gonna say that is absolutely rare. Absolutely rare.
And then the Ramseys putting their big $100,000 reward in the newspaper. Okay, how serious are you if you're just going to list it in the newspaper? Which I mean, I know it was the 90s, more people read the newspaper and shit. But if you're serious about putting a reward out there, you're going to be putting that out on every news station and media outlet you can. You're not going to be running an ad in a fucking newspaper.
You're right. You are so right about that. Let's see, what was I at? The public thought the grand jury investigation had been inconclusive. In 2002, the statute of limitations on the grand jury's charges had expired. The grand jury's vote to indict was not revealed publicly until October 25th, 2013, when previously sealed court documents were released. The case of JonBenét Ramsey, a show broadcast on CBS on September 18th and 19th of 2016, used a group of experts to evaluate the evidence. The group theorized that Burke hit his sister in the head with a heavy object, possibly a flashlight, after she stole a piece of pineapple from his bowl, perhaps not intending to kill her. They suggested the ransom letter was an attempt to cover up the circumstances of JonBenét's death. On behalf of Burke Ramsey, his counsel filed defamation lawsuits against CBS, the producers of the program, and several of its participants based on its many claims. So there we have a family member theory. On the one end, Patsy could have killed her because of a bedwetting incident. or the brother hit her with a flashlight or some kind of blunt object, or could have been a little bit of both.
See, I don't believe it was Patsy that did it because JonBenét was her mini-me. I mean, she was living her best life through JonBenét, reliving her beauty pageant years and all that. I don't believe she would have laid a finger on that child. She would have rather beat Burke than lay a finger on JonBenét, in my opinion. I do believe that, Burke got upset over the pineapple, and there's evidence to back that up. There was pineapple found in JonBenét's stomach during the autopsy. And I believe that that's probably what happened, is that, the Ramseys were guilty of something, but they weren't guilty of murder. They were just guilty of covering up for their son.
Okay. All right. Well, that takes care of the family member theory. This is the intruder theory. The one that I personally do not subscribe to. Just letting you all know. The second theory is the intruder theory. The police and the prosecutors followed leads for intruders partly due to the unidentified boot mark left in the basement where JonBenét's body was found. Early persons of interest included neighbor Bill McReynolds, who played Santa Claus, Chris Wolf, a local reporter whose then girlfriend reported him as a suspect, family housekeeper Linda Hoffman Pugh, and a man named Michael Helgoff, who died in an apparent suicide shortly after JonBenét's death. Hundreds of DNA tests were performed to find a match to the DNA recovered during her autopsy. In a 2003 defamation lawsuit related to the case, Wolf v. Ramsey, involving the Ramseys publicly identifying an early suspect in the case, Judge Julie E. Carnes wrote the following: "There is virtually no evidence to support the plaintiff's theory that the Ramseys murdered their child, but abundant evidence to support the Ramseys' belief that an intruder entered their home at some point during the night of December 25th, 1996, and killed their daughter." Lou Smith, a detective in the case, assessed the evidence and concluded that an intruder had committed the crime. On the night JonBenét was killed, there had been 2 windows that were left slightly open for electrical cords for the outside Christmas lights to pass through, a broken basement window, and 1 unlocked door. Smith's theory was that someone entered the Ramsey home through the broken basement window. Critics have questioned this theory because there was an intact cobweb in the basement window.
Exactly. And here's the deal. Isn't it convenient that all these windows were left open and the doors left unlocked? The Ramseys were wealthy beyond belief. Do you honestly think they're going to leave their shit wide open for someone to come in?
Good point. The steel grate that covered the window also had undisturbed cobwebs, and foliage around the grate had also been undisturbed. There were also cobwebs in the tracks of various windows and dust and debris on some sills. Smith believed that the intruder subdued JonBenét using a stun gun and took her down to the basement. JonBenét was killed and a ransom note was left. Smith's theory was supported by former FBI agent John E. Douglas, who had been hired by the Ramsey family. Believing that the Ramseys were innocent, Smith resigned from the investigation on September 20th, 1998, 5 days after the grand jury was convened against the Ramseys. While no longer an official investigator on the case, Smith continued to work on it until his death in 2010. Author Steven Singler, in his book Presumed Guilty, in which was published in 1999 and revised in 2016, refers to consultations with cybercrime specialists to argue JonBenét attracted the attention of child pornographers and pedophiles affiliated with the child pageant scene. Now that line right there, I can actually see simply because of that. I mean, at that time, JonBenét.
Yeah.
I mean, when my mother was alive, we were following this case. My mother would look at JonBenét and would call her a little woman because of the way she looked from top to bottom.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what caused people to think that, Patsy was involved, because they, and even now, why would you dress your little girl in such provocative clothing like that? I mean, I can't even imagine putting one of my children out for display like that.
Agreed.
But they have debunked the whole stun gun theory, because the marks that they were saying were caused by a stun gun aren't the type of marks that would actually appear from a stun gun. It's more likely that those marks were caused by the train tracks in the little train setup that was down in the basement.
Again, like I said, as I started this earlier, it's another one of those things that just makes you go, Sigler further believes that the investigation was overly focused on the Ramsey parents, hampering investigation into alternate scenarios, and the Ramseys were not responsible for the murder other than perhaps unwittingly exposing their daughter to sexual predators. Singular speculates that this scenario explains why the grand jury did not recommend indicting the Ramsey parents for murder, but for child abuse or endangerment, for placing their daughters in a risky situation. It was determined that there had been more than 100 burglaries in the Ramsey's neighborhood in the months before JonBenét's murder. There were 38 registered sex offenders living within a 2-mile radius of the Ramsey's home.
Wow.
In 2001, former Boulder County prosecutor Trip DeMuth and Boulder County Sheriff's Detective Steve Ainsworth stated that there should be a more aggressive investigation of the intruder theory. One of the individuals whom Smith identified as a suspect was Gary Howard Oliver, who was arrested for 2 counts of attempted sexual exploitation of a child and 1 count of sexual exploitation of child charges in 2016, and that's according to Boulder's Daily Camera. Oliver, a registered sex offender, was publicly identified as a suspect in an October 2002 episode of 48 Hours Investigates. The killing of JonBenét, The Truth Uncovered, broadcast by A&E on September 5, 2016, concluded that an unidentified male was responsible for JonBenét's death, based on forensic DNA analysis of the evidence. In the documentary, DNA and forensic scientist expert Lawrence Kobylinski stated that an unidentified male committed this crime. The DA's office investigating pedophiles and indicated to former Denver prosecutor Craig Silverman that the DA's office followed the intruder theory. The Ramseys developed a relationship with District Attorney Mary Lacey and her office, which was criticized by authorities as such as the city's mayor, Leslie L. Durgan. Silverman said, "Once you have conceived the possibility of an intruder, I don't see how any Ramsey could ever be successfully prosecuted." Gordon Coombs joined the office as an investigator under Lacey when they were testing JonBenét's clothing for touch DNA. He also said that Lacey strongly supported the intruder theory and talked about it with the staff. although he was not directly involved with the case, he said he was told not to voice opposition to the theory because he might lose his job. It just seemed weird, the whole premise of this attempt to influence the entire agency, he said.
Yeah, and the thing is that touch DNA, especially at that time, it wasn't that advanced. It's kind of junk science because they've gone back and they said that had JonBenét's underwear been inspected by, I mean, depending on how old it was, it could have been underwear that had touch DNA from someone that inspected the underwear at a factory.
Mm-hmm. That is basically the whole thing, and you know how I am about DNA evidence. If I mean, we go back to when we were covering the OJ case. If DNA evidence links it back to you and I'm following this case, don't put me on a jury and expect me to find you not guilty. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Then we go to the false confession in the case. Alexis Valoran Reich, then known as John Mark Carr, was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand on August 15, 2006, following a false confession to murdering JonBenét. A 41-year-old schoolteacher, Reich claimed that he had drugged, sexually assaulted, and accidentally killed JonBenét. According to CNN, authorities also said they did not find any evidence linking Reich to the crime scene. In the confession, Reich had provided only basic facts that were publicly known and failed to provide any additional convincing details. The claim that JonBenét was drugged further cast doubt on the confession because the autopsy indicated no drugs were found in her body. Furthermore, Reich's DNA did not match DNA on JonBenét's body. On October 26 of 2006, Reich sent an email to Bill Hammonds of Bill's List seeking a literary agent to help publish a manuscript that some might find controversial. Reich sent emails under numerous pen names, including Daxus the Conqueror, Dark Prince, that's spelled DRKPRNZ, and Alexis. Reich later changed her legal name to John Mark Carr, from John Mark Carr to Alexis Valoran Reich, or Delia Alexis Reich, according to a Washington state driver's license, after coming out as transgender. However, Samantha Spiegel, who gained a restraining order from Reich, alleged Reich only intended to undergo gender reassignment surgery to get closer to young girls in a child sex cult called the Immaculates. Whew. Now that's the one that got me. Wait a minute. Why would you falsely confess to something you had no business in? And two, what does a child sex cult have to do with a 6-year-old child beauty pageant queen, $118,000 ransom, and her death?
Yeah, I mean, if it was related to some child sex ring or something like that, they wouldn't have left JonBenét there. They wouldn't have killed her, and they wouldn't have asked for ransom. They would have just sold her into trafficking.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, that I mentioned $118,000. Did you hear how much that would have been in 2021 currency? Well over $200,000.
Not surprising.
Yeah, about 200. I believe it was what, $203,877.
Well, I mean, yeah, that makes sense because you
Yeah.
could buy some brand new cars for under 10 grand back in the 90s. So,
Well, as the we know that believe it or not, the investigation is still ongoing. It's listed as a cold case, but the investigation is still active. Meanwhile, we still have there were defamation lawsuits that went through, starting with Lynn Wood. Lynn Wood, the Ramsey's family libel attorney, filed defamation lawsuits against several people and companies that had reported on the case starting in 1999. They sued Star Magazine and its parent company, American Media Incorporated, on their son's behalf in 1999. Defamation lawsuits have been filed by the Ramseys and their friends against several unnamed media outlets. A defamation suit was filed in 2001 against the authors and publisher of JonBenét Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation in 2000. The suit that suit was against Don Davis, Stephen Thomas, and St. Martin's Press, and that was settled out of court the following year. John and Patsy were sued in 2 defamation lawsuits arising from a publication of their book, The Death of Innocence, which was released in 2001. These suits were brought by 2 persons named in the book who were said to have been investigated by Boulder police as suspects in the case. The Ramseys were defended in those lawsuits by Lynn Wood and 3 other Atlanta attorneys, James C. Rawls, Eric P. Schroeder, and S. Derek Bauer. They obtained the dismissal of both lawsuits. U.S. District Court Judge Julie Carnes later concluded that abundant evidence in the murder case pointed to an intruder having committed the crime. In November 2006, Rod Westmoreland, a friend of John Ramsey, filed a defamation suit against an anonymous web surfer who had posted 2 messages on internet forums using the pseudonym Under the Radar, implicating Westmoreland in the murder. During a September 2016 interview with CBS Detroit, and in the case of JonBenét Ramsey documentary television program, forensic pathologist Werner Spitz accused Burke Ramsey of killing his sister. On October 6, 2016, Burke filed a defamation lawsuit against Spitz. Burke and his attorneys, who included Lynn Wood, sought a total of $150 million in punitive and compensatory damages. Wood said he would also file a suit against CBS at the end of 2016. On December 28, 2016, Burke Ramsey's lawyers filed an additional civil suit that accused CBS, the production company Critical Content LLC, and 7 experts and consultants of defamation of character. They sought $250 million in compensatory damages and $500 million in punitive damages. In January 2018, the judge denied the CBS motion to dismiss, and the suit was allowed to proceed. In January 2019, Wood announced that the lawsuit had been settled to the satisfaction of all parties. So that takes care of all the defamation lawsuits and all. All we still wonder now, or we still go right back to the original question that started this edition of Bethea's Byte Reloaded. Who killed JonBenét Ramsey?
And I still feel like it was Burke. I don't buy into the intruder theory because there were cobwebs in the windowsills. There were no footprints out in the snow. I mean, unless he flew in the window, I don't buy into the intruder theory at all. I don't buy into Patsy committing it because, again, JonBenét was her golden child, her trophy, basically. It was her little dress-up doll. She treated She treated JonBenét more like a trophy than she did a child. I mean, so I don't know. I don't think she would have harmed that girl. I just and the letter was written in Patsy's handwriting, so I don't think it was anything to do with Mr. Ramsey. I think that they were covering up for Burke. That's what I've believed for a long time. And then when I saw him on the Dr. Phil show and I watched his behavior on there, it just sealed it for me.
Let me see. I'm gonna do something I normally don't do. I'm gonna take the DNA evidence out of the picture. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're getting a shock. The Last Outlaw is taking DNA out of the picture for his theory. You mentioned Patsy Ramsey writing the ransom note. I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that there was pineapple found during the autopsy. Am I correct?
Yep.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm thinking about it and thinking about it long and hard, I'm starting to agree with you as far as Bert goes. And besides, if he was willing to cover the whole thing up. Remember when they said when they found her body, there was a garrote around her neck.
Yeah, and that was fashioned. That was fashioned out of Patsy's materials too.
Mm-hmm. So putting all that together somehow, some way, I don't know how his DNA evidence is getting out of that mix.
Well, the thing is that the DNA that they found was not one person's DNA. It's a mixture of DNAs. And so when they sat there and they started excluding people, they technically can't do that because they can't pinpoint one person's DNA. It's in a mix. And so it's hard to exclude anyone at this point, including Burke.
Absolutely. But yet the investigation continues, and like I said at the start, despite our agreeable theory, there's still a lot more questions and answers, including the biggest question of the movie: who killed her and why?
You know, I really hate to think that this little boy killed his sister over a piece of fucking pineapple, but that's what it looks like.
Oh man, it does. It does. As crazy as it sounds, and believe me, it sounds crazy. But we'll just have to wait and see, because like I said, the investigation is still ongoing, and there's no new answers, no new leads, no new theories. It's still working at the same level. And if there is one other suspect that we can kind of rule out now, it would be Patsy, because one, she's no longer with us.
True. And the other reason why I don't think Patsy is, if you've ever watched the interviews that she did on Larry King Live and the other media outlets, The pain in her was real. You cannot fake that type of pain and anguish.
I don't like that at all. Fox?
I'm here.
Yeah, I said, yeah, you can't fake that at all. I mean,
No.
you lose.
You know, I'd stop suspecting Candace if she'd show that type of pain and anguish.
If you lose a child, that's a pain. That's a parent's pain. You can't fake. You can't even duplicate that. That is simply straight up a mother's heartache. And that's from those interviews you just mentioned, that's exactly what Patricia Ramsey was feeling at that time.
You know, the thing that's always gotten me, and the thing that's always stuck in my head is the first police officer that got to the scene. It was a female police officer, and she has done interviews saying that she could tell exactly what happened and who was responsible from the moment she got into that circus of a scene. You know, she was there practically by herself for almost an hour before she had any backup get there, but she's never come out and said what she thinks her theory is.
That's true. And on top of it, that one DA who flat out exonerated the Ramseys at that point. I mean, you got to agree to a point that you can't just go ahead and say, oh, they're clear of any evidence against them. I need to just jump right up and say that with that kind of ease, with that kind of confidence, without going through all the evidence to back that up.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to the DNA, where it's a mixture and stuff. They tried to say that they could exonerate the Ramseys through the DNA, but at this point, no one can be exonerated because it's a mixture of DNA. Now, in today's technology, they may be able to, but we're talking about the 90s. They didn't have the ability to separate the DNA out back then. So hopefully, when they start taking a new look at the DNA evidence, maybe, just maybe, we'll start to get some answers.
Maybe. This is where the rubber is going to meet road for the Boulder Police Department, the Boulder DA's office, and all the other law enforcement agencies in that area. Because here's something. Here's how we've aged with this case. I mentioned it earlier I mentioned earlier that if JonBenét was alive today, she would be 32 years of age.
Wow, now I feel old. Thank you.
Well, hey, welcome to the club. I feel old too because when I said that, wait, she would be how old? Wow. You know, again, we just waiting. This is a wait and see thing. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to go through, but at the same time, this is a game of patience and figuring out who done it. I mean, we've probably watched murder mysteries on TV, fictionalized murder mysteries that taken so long to solve, but it usually got done in a couple hours. I
think part of the issue that we've got in this case, and I know he's a well-regarded forensic scientist, blah blah blah, pathologist, whatever, But every case that Spitz gets involved in seems to turn into a fucking circus. He was involved in the Casey Anthony case. He was involved in the O.J. Simpson case.
Oh God, I hate to find out that he was involved in another case. I want to bring up. Maybe I'll do that for the next Bethea's Byte.
Well, you know, his claim to fame is that he was involved in the Kennedy case, the John F. Kennedy assassination.
Oh my gosh. I was not thinking that. But now that you told me that, good grief. The case I'm thinking about doing possibly next week or sometime down the road, the case against Jodi Arias.
Oh God.
For those of you who are going to watch this on replay, catching this point right now, let me break down this case as best I can, because sometime down the road I'm gonna go deep into it. This is about a woman who calls herself falling in love with a guy. The guy's not that interested in her. You know, doesn't that sound like an old movie? He's just not that into you.
No, the Jodi Arias case, if I was going to compare it to a movie, I'd compare it to Fatal Attraction.
That's where that part comes in. She gets that attitude because she finds out that the guy she's supposedly in love with is going to Mexico for vacation with another woman. She gets the whole idea in her head of, if I can't have them, no one can.
Oh, I know. And then, you know, that woman, she's some type of something. Did you see her sitting there doing her yoga in the freaking interrogation room?
Yep. Oh my God. I've watched interview on top of interview on top of interview on top of interview with her. And I tell you between her TV interviews, her police interviews, her testimony on the witness stand, which we'll talk about sometime down the road. She lies like a dog. She lies like bearskin rug. Dang, I need a couple more good lie lines just to describe how bad she lies.
She lies like Trump at a congressional hearing.
I was gonna say she runs neck and neck with Trump and lying. Oh my God! And then on top of it, this part's not funny. We're laughing about how bad Jodi Arias lies, ladies and gentlemen. What's not funny is the end result of this. She takes the guy. She stabs him multiple times. She slits his throat, smiley face style, and then shoots him. What? 3-4 times?
Oh, but the best part is that she took photographs to commemorate the occasion.
Yes. And then on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest lie she's told out of the whole thing. The guy abused her. So she had to defend herself. And as my favorite line from the Maury show, and Maury, congratulations, enjoy your retirement. And the lie detector determined that was a lie. I mean, come on, man. I mean, if you're gonna lie, please make it believable. Make it believable. But like I said, that's a case I want to do sometime down the road. The people of the state of Arizona versus Jodi Arias. Murder in the First. What do you think, Fox?
I think we are all blessed that Jody doesn't have internet access where she's at. Otherwise, I think we'd be seeing an OnlyFans from her.
Oh my God. Behind bars?
Hey, some people are into that shit.
Oh my God. Baby, you might be right. You might be right. Oh my God. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But well, that basically that's gonna do it here. We're still we're gonna keep following the JonBenét Ramsey case along with other cases currently going on right now. Missing persons, true crime. That's what we do in the true crime community. Arctic Fox True Crime is all over every missing persons case that comes his way. If it's not covered on Bethea's Byte, he's got it covered. Okay, so
Yeah,
Fox,
do the
man,
best I
thank you so
can.
much.
Oh, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
You know it. You know it. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Again, to the 111 subscribers on YouTube, thank you. I've said it once. I've said it over 1 million times. You're the engine that keeps Bethea's Byte reloaded and running. So thank you. Let's keep this going. I'll be back next week, same time, same station. And until next time, you all know what to do. Byte this. Hey everybody, this is The Last Outlaw. I want to thank you all so much for watching this edition of Bethea's Byte. I've said it many times over that you are the engine that keeps Bethea's Byte going. Be sure to follow Bethea's Byte and Bethea's Byte Reloaded all over social media. Follow me on Facebook at The Last Outlaw 316 on my personal page or the Bethea's Byte Reloaded page at Bethea's Byte Reloaded. Follow, like, share, leave a comment for me. Let me hear from you. Follow me on Twitter at EKB316. Follow, like, retweet, share, leave me a comment. I want to hear your thoughts. Hit me up on YouTube at user/EKB316. Like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, and be sure to ring that notification bell for future videos. Swing by the message forum at Bethea'sByte.com. Register, log in, leave a comment, get in on the conversation and the investigation. Drop me an email at kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. In the subject line, put in Bethea's Byte Reloaded, but keep your comments clean, as they may be read live. I'll have videos and links for the missing and true crime cases on my new Instagram account at EBTheLastOutlaw. I still won't mind you giving me a comment or two. Let me know what you're thinking. This is the home for news, opinions, debates, your voice, and justice served. This is Bethea's Byte, and it's reloaded.